Nobody, and I mean nobody, expected Caitlin Clark to walk onto live national television and drop a statement so raw, so unfiltered, and so brutally honest that it sent a shockwave through the entire basketball world. Fans froze, commentators went silent, and NBA players, the same ones who've been casually debating her talent for months, suddenly looked very uncomfortable. Because Caitlin didn't just speak her mind. She called out the entire culture surrounding women's basketball. And the moment it happened, you could feel the tension shift. The host asked her a harmless, polished, PR-friendly question about transitioning to the league. But Caitlin didn't play the game. She didn't give the safe corporate answer. She didn't smile and move on. She inhaled, leaned forward, and said, "Why do people only respect women's basketball when it threatens men's comfort?" The studio fell silent. And then she kept going. She spoke about the double standards, the disrespect, the dismissive memes, the way NBA players treat women's highlights like they're cute instead of elite. She talked about skill, pressure, and carrying entire viewership spikes on her shoulders while still being doubted by athletes who've never watched a full women's game. And then she delivered the line that broke the internet. If some NBA players actually watched us hoop, they'd stop pretending they're above us. Within seconds, social media detonated. NBA players were tweeting cryptically. Our fans were screen recording everything. Sports shows scrambled to rewrite their morning segments. And the league panicked. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just defend the WNBA. She challenged the hierarchy that male players have been comfortable sitting on for decades. And the craziest part? Insiders say she didn't even reveal the full story behind her comment. Not yet. From the outside, it looked like Caitlin Clark was living the perfect rise. Record-breaking numbers, sold-out arenas, in national attention, endorsements lining up, cameras following her every move. She was becoming the most visible women's basketball star since Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird. But what fans didn't see, what the media didn't talk about, what the NBA players never acknowledged, was the pressure cooker building behind the scenes. Because for months, Caitlin had been carrying the sport on her back while quietly absorbing disrespect from places she never expected, including inside the NBA. It started subtly, a few jokes on podcasts, a sarcastic tone here and there. In NBA, players laughing when asked if a college woman could really hoop like that. Clips of Caitlin hitting logo threes were constantly met with, "Nice for women's basketball. She wouldn't get that off in the league. Looks easy when there's no defense." Every single highlight she posted had thousands of comments comparing her to the worst NBA bench players. Not because they believed those players were better, but because they couldn't imagine a woman being great without tearing her down. And Caitlin saw it all. She never said a word publicly. She kept her head down. She focused on the game. Until the disrespect became impossible to ignore. Because as Caitlin's popularity skyrocketed, so did the jealousy. Not just from random fans, but from NBA players who felt threatened by how fast the spotlight was shifting. It started with an NBA bench player, someone averaging 3 points a game, posting, "I'd drop 60 on the WNBA." Easy. It got worse when a former NBA role player said on a podcast, "Caitlin Clark? She's good, but she wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real game." The clip went viral. Millions of views, debates everywhere. And Caitlin? Silent. Still respectful. Still composed. But according to insiders close to her team, that was the first crack. Because behind closed doors, Big Caitlin was asking, why do they think disrespecting women makes them look stronger? Then came the incident that really pushed Caitlin toward the breaking point. A young all-star player, someone fans idolize, reacted to her highlights on IG by commenting, "She's nice, but let's not hype her like she's one of us." One of us. As if greatness is gendered. As if skill belongs to one group. As if women can succeed only up to a certain ceiling. Caitlin screenshotted it. Didn't respond. Didn't like it. Didn't react publicly. But those around her said she saved it. She held on to it. Because deep down, she knew she was being judged by people who had never watched a full WNBA game. People who underestimated how hard women's basketball truly is. People who believed athleticism was the only marker of greatness. And then came the final straw. During the NCAA tournament, when Caitlin single-handedly carried her team through games with 40-point performances, an NBA analyst went on live TV and said, "It's cute to compare her to NBA shooters, but let's be real, she wouldn't even be able to practice with NBA players." Caitlin heard it. Her teammates heard it. The entire women's basketball community heard it. And that was the beginning of the internal transformation. Because Caitlin Clark had given everything to basketball: discipline, talent, vision, leadership. She had brought millions of new fans into the sport. She had made women's basketball appointment viewing. She had elevated TV ratings to numbers networks hadn't seen in decades. Meanwhile, the NBA, with all its resources and money, wasn't growing nearly as fast. And players were noticing. Some quietly respected her. Some admired her range. Some had the humility to appreciate her rise. But others, they were uncomfortable. They were annoyed by the attention shift. They felt threatened by the global spotlight she commanded. They didn't like that ESPN was running Caitlin Clark segments instead of their highlights. And the resentment kept building, until it all erupted backstage at a major televised interview. Sources say Caitlin overheard two NBA players, well-known, publicly respected players, joking that women's basketball is just cardio. They don't play real defense. Caitlin is famous because she's marketable, not because she's talented. Caitlin didn't confront them, didn't react, didn't break. She filed it away, because the next time she was put on live television, she was done being polite. As she sat down for the interview, makeup still fresh, mic clipped to her jersey, the host smiled, expecting the usual conversation about endorsements, transitions, and team chemistry. But Caitlin wasn't giving PR answers anymore. She was ready to speak the truth. The truth she had been holding back for months. The truth the NBA didn't want to hear. The truth the world wasn't prepared for. She leaned forward, her tone sharpened, and she dropped the line that made NBA players shift in their seats across the country. Why do people only respect women's basketball when it threatens men's comfort? That wasn't rehearsed. That wasn't approved. That wasn't sanitized. That was a challenge, a statement, a mirror held up to the entire basketball world. And she didn't stop there. Caitlin said she was tired of the double standards, tired of the memes, tired of the comments, tired of the disrespect masked as jokes, tired of watching NBA players pretend women weren't hooping at an elite level. She said, "If some NBA players actually watched us hoop, they'd stop pretending they're above us." That was the moment the discomfort began. Because NBA players weren't used to being called out, especially not by a woman who had just become the biggest superstar in American basketball. Phones buzzed across locker rooms. Group chats exploded. Agents panicked. And publicists started drafting statements. And Caitlin Clark? She sat back calmly, as if she knew something the rest of the world didn't. She wasn't speaking for herself. She was speaking for every woman who ever picked up a basketball and was told she wasn't enough. The fallout from Caitlin Clark's on-air truth bomb didn't just ripple through the basketball world. It detonated it. The moment she stepped off that studio set, the sports universe split clean down the middle. Then her fans were celebrating her courage. The WNBA was buzzing with pride, and social media crowned her the new face of women's empowerment in sports. But inside NBA locker rooms, men were shook. Men were angry. Men were uncomfortable in a way they had never been before. Because Caitlin didn't just challenge the culture. She challenged them. And NBA players are not used to being challenged by women. The first official response came indirectly. On a popular NBA podcast, hosted by two mid-level players who never miss a chance to mock women's sports, played Caitlyn's clip and immediately burst into forced laughter. One of them said, "Look, she's good on for women's hoops, but let's not act like she's dropping 40 on men." The other chimed in, "She talking like she could guard anybody in the league. Come on now." The clip went viral, not because of what they said, but because of the insecurity dripping from every word. And they weren't laughing at Caitlyn. They were laughing because they were uncomfortable. But then came the twist. A respected NBA veteran, someone with championships, influence, and a voice that carries weight, jumped in to defend Caitlyn. He tweeted, "If you feel threatened by Caitlyn Clark, maybe she's not the problem." That tweet blew up. Hundreds of thousands of likes. Players started deleting their earlier comments. The narrative shifted. But the NBA wasn't done. No, not even close. Because the real conflict began when a young all-star, someone known for ego, highlight plays, and loud talk, decided to respond more aggressively. He quote-tweeted Caitlyn's clip and said, "She better relax before someone invites her to open gym and reality hits." It was meant as a threat, a flex, a way to put Caitlyn back in her place. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. WNBA players flamed him. Women who had played overseas, women who had run with pros in the offseason, women who had trained with men at the highest levels started replying, "She already cooked dudes in practice. You're talking loud for someone who averages 12 points. She shoots better than half your team. You're scared she'll embarrass you on camera." But then came the twist that changed everything. A former NBA teammate of his, someone who had trained with Caitlyn privately last summer, posted, "She's not scared of y'all. In fact, some of y'all refuse to guard her in runs." Boom. An explosion. Nuclear meltdown. Because now it wasn't just Caitlyn's words. It was proof. NBA players had seen her hoop up close. They had watched her hit shots from 35 feet. They had watched her cook defenders. They had watched her outwork, outrun, and outperform men who underestimated her. And suddenly, Caitlyn wasn't delusional. Caitlyn wasn't arrogant. Caitlyn wasn't talking tough. She was telling the truth. But the NBA All-Star didn't back down. His ego wouldn't let him. He posted another tweet. "Cool story. She wouldn't last 2 minutes guarding elite players." He should have stopped. The internet begged him to stop. But then, he made the mistake of tagging her. He publicly tagged Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn saw it instantly. She didn't panic. She didn't delete. She didn't call her PR team. She posted one icy response. "You talk a lot about guarding me. Funny, you never volunteered when we ran together." Bam. Silence. Twitter collapsed. And fans were screaming, "Expose him! She was there? She hooped with him in private? The men are quiet now." But that wasn't even the twist. The real twist came from a video that surfaced minutes later. An anonymous user uploaded grainy footage from an off-season private scrimmage, where Caitlyn Clark was running with pros, including the exact NBA player who tried to clown her online. In the clip, Caitlyn hits a step-back three, right in his face. He tries to recover. She hits another one. Crowd goes wild. He stops guarding her. And here's the punchline. Someone in the background says, "Bro just said he ain't guarding no girl." The clip spread like wildfire. Millions of views. Sports networks ran it on repeat. The All-Star went silent. Deleted tweets, turned off comments. But it was too late. Caitlyn had proved everything she said on TV. She proved that NBA disrespect doesn't come from ability. It comes from insecurity. She proved that when men get uncomfortable, they try to minimize women. She proved that she wasn't afraid of any competition. But just when fans thought the drama had peaked, a massive twist hit the internet. A leaked audio clip, reportedly from an NBA players group chat, captured a player saying, "If we hype her up too much, one day she'll get a real shot to hoop with us, and then it's over." Over. Meaning, they know. They know she can hoop. They know she belongs. They know she threatens the hierarchy. And they are terrified of what happens when the world sees it without filters, locker room bravado, or fragile egos. The audio exposed the truth Caitlyn didn't say on camera. NBA players aren't uncomfortable because she's wrong. They're uncomfortable because she's right. But the biggest twist, the one nobody expected, came from the WNBA side. A league insider leaked that Caitlyn had already been invited to participate in a televised NBA versus WNBA shooting challenge next offseason. And guess which NBA player quietly begged producers to remove his name from consideration? Yep, the same all-star who tried to disrespect her online. And now, everyone's waiting for his response. Everyone's waiting for her next move. And everyone's asking the same dangerous question. Is the NBA afraid of Caitlyn Clark, or afraid of what she represents? Caitlyn Clark had barely finished wiping off her makeup from the interview before her phone started vibrating nonstop. Notifications exploding, missed calls stacking, mentions skyrocketing. Every sports app, every talk show, every major outlet was replaying her clip like it was breaking news. And inside NBA locker rooms across the country, the energy had shifted from arrogance to full-blown panic. Because this wasn't a moment. This was a movement. And the men who had built their entire identity on being untouchable suddenly felt the ground move beneath them. The NBA tried to laugh it off at first. Anonymous sources leaking little jokes to reporters. Agents whispering to media personalities to keep it light. PR teams pushing the narrative that Clark didn't mean it like that. But those attempts fell flat the second a certain superstar reacted. A superstar whose voice actually mattered. Before Caitlyn even checked her messages, a notification hit that froze the entire internet. LeBron James had reposted her clip. No emoji, no caption, just the video, and a pair of wide eyes. The message was clear. He heard her. He understood her. And more importantly, he wasn't dismissing her. NBA players went silent. Because if there is one person men in the league fear arguing against publicly, it's LeBron James. His repost instantly validated everything Caitlyn said. And suddenly it was no longer a woman talking. It was a truth that even the biggest male superstar on the planet was acknowledging. And that drove certain players crazy. One of the loudest critics, the same all-star Caitlyn cooked in the leaked scrimmage clip, immediately called his agent asking if he should clarify or fight back. The agent told him to shut up. But his ego? Too fragile to be controlled. He jumped onto Instagram Live. Bad decision. He started ranting about how people were overhyping Caitlyn, how women's basketball was a different game, how he wasn't going to let a narrative get twisted. But the moment he said, "Let's stop pretending she could hang with real hoopers," the comment section exploded. Trolls roasted him, women flamed him. NBA legends called him insecure. WNBA stars joined the live just to laugh. And then, Caitlyn Clark herself popped into the viewer list. 40,000 people watching the live suddenly typed, "Caitlyn's here. She sees you. You're done. This is so embarrassing." He panicked, ended the live instantly. Too late. Caitlyn didn't respond, not publicly, not yet. But the internet had already crowned her the winner of a fight she didn't even start. Meanwhile, NBA executives were sweating. They recognized the danger immediately. Not the PR danger, but the ego danger. If this became a war between NBA players and Caitlyn Clark, the league risked looking insecure, misogynistic, and outdated. That affects sponsorships. That affects public trust. That affects money. So, a confidential memo was sent across ESPN and other media partners. A memo that should have stayed private, but of course, someone leaked it. The memo said, "Shift coverage toward reconciliation narratives. Avoid framing NBA players as threatened or antagonistic. Emphasize unity and mutual respect. Translation? The NBA was scared, and not of Caitlyn herself, but of how bad it looked that grown men were threatened by a 22-year-old woman dropping truth on live TV. But the memo didn't stop there. Another line, the one that blew up Twitter, said, "Do not amplify player comments that reinforce gender hierarchy. Redirect segments to highlight Caitlyn's positive impact and avoid confrontational angles." Gender hierarchy. Fans immediately knew what that meant. The NBA didn't want the public to realize what Caitlyn had already exposed. Some players were angry because a woman was pulling more ratings than entire NBA teams. They didn't want the world connecting the dots. They didn't want the narrative turning against the league. They didn't want Caitlyn and the WNBA gaining too much power too fast. But it was too late, because right as the memo leaked, another WNBA superstar spoke out. Aja Wilson, tired of the disrespect, Art posted, "Caitlyn said what needed to be said. The uncomfortable truth usually is." Boom. Retweets everywhere. Men fuming, women celebrating. Then another twist, an even bigger one, hit the storyline. A reporter published a claim that certain NBA players were plotting behind the scenes to humble Caitlyn by inviting her to a men's scrimmage and filming the results. It was meant as a coordinated embarrassment, a revenge hit disguised as basketball. Except the plan fell apart instantly. Why? Because multiple players refused to sign off on it. One NBA veteran reportedly said, "I'm not risking getting destroyed on camera. Have you seen her range?" Another said, "You're about to turn her into a legend if she cooks just one guy." And the most honest one said, "She already cooked some of y'all in private runs. I'm not volunteering for that smoke." The fear was real. The egos were fragile. The illusion of superiority, cracking by the minute. But while all this was happening, Caitlyn was quiet. Too quiet. Her agent told reporters she wasn't planning on addressing the situation again, but insiders said something different. She was planning her response very carefully, because Caitlyn wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. She was carrying the weight of every young girl who ever wanted to hoop without being mocked by men who couldn't guard her in their dreams. The turning point came when ESPN attempted damage control, and they invited Caitlyn back for another interview, hoping she'd soften her tone, apologize, or walk back her comments for the sake of unity. She didn't. Instead, Caitlyn said, "I'm not here to protect anyone's feelings. I'm here to speak facts." And then she doubled down. If the truth makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should look at why. NBA players watching from their couches felt that in their soul. But the biggest shock of all came next, and an unedited clip, cut from the interview before airing, leaked online. In it, Caitlyn said, "I've played against men my whole life. Some respected the game, some didn't. But the ones who didn't, they're the same ones talking the loudest now." That was the dagger. Fans demanded, "Who?" Name names. Drop the list. But Caitlyn didn't have to, because the men who felt guilty, the men who underestimated her, the men she exposed without naming, they immediately outed themselves by getting defensive on social media. One tweeted, "I don't recall ever running with her," and the replies were brutal. "Nobody asked you, why you so guilty? She wasn't even talking about you, but look at you exposing yourself." Guilty conscience jumping out. Meanwhile, the all-star who started the whole thing, he tried reaching out privately, tried apologizing, tried to DM Caitlyn. She left him on scene. And this is where the most shocking reveal of all dropped. A leaked text from an NBA assistant coach saying, "Some of these guys are panicking because the WNBA is about to surpass them in cultural relevance." And Caitlyn just pushed it faster. Surpass, not equal, not compete. Surpass. That's the real reason NBA players were uncomfortable. Not because she was wrong, not because she was disrespectful, but because she was right. And her truth placed women's basketball on an unstoppable trajectory. Caitlin didn't just start a conversation, she started a revolution. And every man who mocked women's basketball suddenly looked like they were on the wrong side of history. The moment Caitlin Clark's live TV truth bomb hit the air, the entire sports world split into factions. Fans, commentators, NBA veterans, corporate executives, even retired legends choosing sides like this was a historic cultural showdown rather than a basketball debate. And almost instantly, every corner of the internet began reacting with a speed and intensity nobody predicted. Least of all the NBA players she indirectly called out. At first, sports media pretended it was just another viral clip, but within hours it became obvious. This wasn't a clip. This was a movement, a cultural shift, a reckoning. And the reactions were loud. It's across social media, millions of everyday fans, especially young girls, hoopers, former athletes, coaches, even parents, began posting. She said what needed to be said. Respect women's basketball, period. Men only laugh because they're threatened. She's the most fearless athlete on TV right now. The WNBA community responded immediately. Players from multiple teams posted fire emojis, applause, shaking table memes. One WNBA guard wrote, "I've waited years for someone with her platform to say this." But then, the NBA reaction started. And that turned the story from debate to full-scale culture war. Some NBA players, veterans, champions, respected names, backed Caitlin Clark openly. They understood nuance. They understood pressure. They understood what she meant. One retired legend tweeted, "She isn't attacking NBA players. She's attacking disrespect." Others were not so thoughtful. Yeah, one current NBA role player tweeted, "She gotta chill. NBA is a different planet." The replies immediately buried him. People dug up his stats, screenshotted his 261 averages, called him the guy who talks more than he scores. Then another player posted, "Let's not pretend WNBA is the same level." And that is when the real explosion happened. Because a massive community of fans and players didn't just disagree. They exposed him. And a former teammate posted old practice footage showing him getting cooked by a women's overseas pro. A college coach chimed in saying that elite women routinely beat men in shooting drills, IQ drills, pick-and-roll reads. Suddenly the comments flipped. "Caitlin Clark would dog you in shooting. You can barely hit open threes. She has more range than you ever had. You're only loud because you're insecure." NBA players began posting cryptically. Eyes emojis, "Moise, here we go," LOL whatever. Anything to avoid getting dragged into saying the wrong thing. Then came the NBA legends, who changed the entire tone. Dwyane Wade posted, "If you feel attacked by Caitlin Clark, that says more about you than her." Kevin Durant posted, "Respect women's basketball. It's elite." Fans celebrated, but the uncomfortable truth was becoming impossible to ignore. The NBA had never been this split before, not even during major scandals. Corporations began reacting too. ESPN immediately scheduled a special debate segment. Fox Sports prepared a primetime breakdown. Brands with deals connected to both the NBA and WNBA began panicking behind the scenes, issuing phrases like, "Let's avoid divisive narratives." Frame this as empowerment, not conflict. Avoid implying competition between leagues. But you cannot control the internet once a fire has started. And Caitlin Clark didn't spark a fire. She lit a flare. Within 12 hours, #Caitlin was right hit over 200,000 tweets. Within 24 hours, it passed 1 million. Women athletes from all sports joined the conversation. WNBA stars. She didn't lie. This is bigger than hoops. Respect women's work. NWSL players. We relate to this so deeply. Olympians. Women outperform disrespect every day. College athletes. Thank you for saying it out loud. But then came the moment nobody saw coming. The WNBA officially responded. Not with a statement, not with a PR line, not with watered-down neutrality. They posted a video montage of women hitting crazy shots, tough defense, impossible passes, and ended it with Caitlyn's quote, "Respect isn't optional." The NBA's official account posted nothing. They went silent. Absolutely silent, because responding would acknowledge guilt. Ignoring it made them look defensive. Then a reporter leaked that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver privately told staff, "We need to handle this carefully. The optics are extremely fragile." Translation: Caitlyn didn't just bruise egos, she exposed a fracture the NBA had been hiding for decades. And fans noticed. Comment sections were filled with, "NBA scared of one woman?" Caitlyn made grown men sweat on TV. They're uncomfortable because she's telling the truth. Women's basketball is finally getting the respect it deserves. Then came the nuclear moment, the one that made NBA players genuinely nervous, and a viral fan petition surfaced calling for Caitlyn Clark versus NBA shooting competition televised. Within 10 hours, it had over 500,000 signatures. Networks were interested. Sponsors were interested. Fans were demanding it. But someone wasn't. The leaked ESPN memo revealed that several NBA players privately refused to participate in any mixed-gender competition featuring Caitlyn Clark. Why? The memo said it in plain language. Stars are concerned about the optics of losing publicly. Losing. Publicly. That single sentence shifted the entire conversation. It meant NBA players weren't uncomfortable because they thought Caitlyn wasn't good. They were uncomfortable because deep down, they feared she was good enough. Fans flooded social media. So she can shoot better? They know she'd embarrass them. This is exposing the fragile ego of men's basketball. They're scared of a woman with elite range. Meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark stayed quiet, letting the world debate without her. But her silence made the story grow bigger, because silence meant confidence. Silence meant control. Silence meant she was watching the entire NBA scramble. Then, another twist. A WNBA insider leaked that the league had been approached with the idea of a WNBA versus NBA All-Star Skills Showcase featuring Caitlyn. But the NBA declined. The reason? The leaked internal justification. It does not benefit the NBA to participate in an event where a WNBA player could outperform our talent. Boom, that was it. The truth. The raw, uncomfortable truth. Caitlyn Clark wasn't exposing NBA players. She was exposing the fear of comparison. A fear the NBA had tried to hide for years. And now, fans, media, and athletes around the world were watching one storyline unfold. The NBA is uncomfortable. Not because Caitlyn Clark talked too boldly, but because for the first time ever, a woman has the power to challenge them publicly. And they have no idea how to handle it. Everything was already spiraling. NBA players exposed, ESPN memos leaking, fans demanding cross-league competitions. But nothing could have prepared the world for what came next. Because just when the internet thought the drama had reached its peak, a single moment, a single name drop, a single sentence from one of the biggest NBA superstars alive flipped this entire story upside down and plunged it straight into historic territory. It happened during a live post-game interview. Cameras rolling, sweat still dripping, reporters crowded around the microphone. The energy was tense because everyone in the building knew somebody was going to ask the forbidden question. Again, they did. A reporter cleared his throat and said, "Do you have any thoughts on Caitlyn Clark's comments from earlier this week?" The room stiffened. Players shifted awkwardly. PR staff visibly tensed. Because this wasn't just a player. This was a global icon, a future Hall of Famer, a man whose voice could flip the entire narrative in one sentence. He took a breath, looked into the camera, and delivered the most unexpected line of the entire saga. "Caitlin Clark isn't wrong." Gasps, and hands over mouths, phones thrown into the air as reporters scrambled to tweet it first. But he kept going. And this is what changed everything. Some guys are uncomfortable because they know if she stepped in the gym, she'd outshoot half the league. Half the league. Half. The league. Social media erupted. Fans screamed. NBA players panicked. The WNBA celebrated like it was a championship win. Within minutes, the quote had millions of views. But the real shockwave didn't come from the interview. It came from what leaked right after. A screenshot from an NBA players group chat. Someone, brave or messy, nobody knows, captured a full argument unfolding between players. And the messages were brutal. One player wrote, "She's making us look weak. Somebody needs to put her in her place." Another replied, "Bro, she already cooked you in runs. Sit down." Someone else, "Y'all scared to hoop with her on camera because you know the internet will never let you live it down." And then another, "She shoots better than most point guards in here. That's why y'all mad." This wasn't fan speculation anymore. This was confirmation. NBA players weren't mocking Caitlin Clark. They were hurt. They were exposed. They were argument fighting in group chats because one woman with historic range had shattered the illusion of male invincibility. That's but the final message in that leaked chat? That's what turned Jaws to dust. We can't let her talk like that or the WNBA is going to take over our spotlight. There it was. The fear, the truth, the reason NBA players were uncomfortable. Caitlin Clark wasn't challenging their talent. She was challenging their place in culture. And for the first time, millions of fans realized the NBA isn't afraid she'll lose to them. And if the NBA is afraid she might win, in the one area they care about most: shooting, star power, attention, relevance. And now that the group chat leak had gone viral, everybody waited for Caitlin Clark to respond. Would she double down? Would she clap back? Would she destroy them? Would she name names? Hours passed, then half a day, then a full day. Her silence was starting to feel louder than any statement she could make. Reporters speculated. Podcasters begged her to speak. NBA players prayed she wouldn't. And then, Caitlin finally posted. It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't a tweet storm. It wasn't an apology or a victory lap. It was one line, 10 words. A sentence that instantly became legend. "I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to compete." The internet lost its mind. Fans screamed, "The GOAT has spoken." NBA boys shaking. She just ended the debate. Because Caitlin didn't back down. She didn't soften. She didn't fold. She let the men sit in their discomfort. She let the world see the cracks. She let the truth breathe. And before anyone could catch their breath, another twist dropped. The kind that sets up a storyline too powerful for sports networks to ignore. A breaking report claimed, WNBA executives are in early talks about arranging a nationally televised co-ed shooting showcase involving Caitlin Clark. Not secretly, not quietly, not hypothetically, publicly, nationally, prime-time television. Here's an NBA versus WNBA shooting showdown. A direct comparison, a challenge to the hierarchy, a moment that could rewrite basketball history. But the report wasn't even the twist. The twist was this. Multiple NBA players have already declined invitations. Declined. Before the event was even finalized. Why? The leaked explanation was humiliating. They're concerned about the optics of losing to Caitlin Clark. And now the world sees exactly what Caitlyn meant. Respect isn't being withheld because women lack talent. Respect is being withheld because men fear losing power. Caitlyn Clark didn't create this tension. She exposed it. She didn't divide basketball. She revealed the divide that was already there. And she didn't make NBA players uncomfortable. She made them honest. Now the world waits for the showcase, for the next interview, for the next leak, for the next NBA player foolish enough to poke the beast. Because the next chapter isn't Caitlyn versus the NBA. It's Caitlyn versus the entire sports establishment. An establishment that suddenly realizes one woman with a microphone, a jump shot, and zero fear is powerful enough to change everything. Before you scroll, stop. Because what Caitlyn Clark just unleashed isn't a headline, isn't a debate, isn't some temporary viral moment the NBA can wait out. This is a shift, a cultural earthquake, a pressure wave that's already ripping through locker rooms, boardrooms, studios, and in every corner of basketball conversation. And now you have a role to play, because this story doesn't move forward without the power of the people watching it. So here's what I need from you, right now, before the next chapter drops. Comment below. Do you think Caitlyn Clark should compete against NBA players on live TV? Would she dominate the shooting challenge? Or would the NBA collapse under the pressure of even letting it happen? And drop your take. Why are NBA players really uncomfortable? Is it fear, ego, public embarrassment? Or the realization the WNBA is finally stepping into long overdue respect? Like this video if you think Caitlyn Clark is forcing a conversation that should have been happening years ago. Every like tells the world you're not afraid of the truth she exposed. Subscribe because the next chapter is coming. And trust me, this storyline isn't slowing down. We have leaked group chats, on superstar reactions, secret meeting notes, and new insiders stepping forward. And you better believe the NBA hasn't said its final word. The WNBA hasn't said its final word. And Caitlyn Clark definitely hasn't said her final word. Turn on notifications right now, because the moment the shooting showcase becomes official, or an NBA player finally steps up and says her name directly, this channel will break it down first. Until then, remember this. Caitlyn Clark didn't just talk. So she didn't just clap back. She didn't just challenge the NBA. She changed the entire conversation. And the only thing more powerful than one woman speaking truth is millions of people amplifying it. This isn't the end. This is the beginning.